We've discussed a variety of communication skills, and as a successful salesperson, it's important to perfect how to combine them in order to best understand and build trust with others. In this two-part session, we'll discuss how and why to do just that by revisiting Scott Schwefel's TEDx and diving into enhanced listening skills and uncovering further communication applications. Let's get started. Scott Schwefel did a fantastic job of opening our eyes to the application of communication styles and their associated colors. One of my favorite parts of his discussion is how he related it to his wife and kids while sharing their associated colors. This type of personal connection and understanding outside of the office helps us more easily anchor concepts and apply them to our professional lives as well. To help shape our thoughts around communication styles and listening skills, let's take a trip around the neighborhood while thinking back to Schwefel's discussion on color energies and insight discovery. To help keep our neighbors straight, the first letter of their names corresponds to the first letter of their color and communication style. For example, red equals Rita, yellow is Yvonne, green is Gary, and blue is Brian. Let's meet Rita, your red neighbor. You often see Rita driving fast through the neighborhood in her expensive car or walking quickly to grab the mail, without much care or concern for what is going on around her. She seems busy and impatient, and you've even overheard her giving orders to her landscaper about when she'd like the lawn cut so her business calls aren't interrupted. You can remember a few waves in brief conversations, but you realize you don't know Rita well and she's never mentioned much about her personal life. But she did take the time to share a promotion she got at work one day when you happen to run into each other during a walk. The Ritas you'll experience in the business community like to go fast, win, and almost always prefer their ideas to those around them. They are fantastic at completing tasks and will expect the same from you. But sometimes they seem insensitive, overly controlling, and too resistant to the better option if it's not their idea. Selling to them will be challenging, will require a stiff backbone, and keeping in mind they're with them is extremely important. Now that we understand your red neighbor Rita, let's meet your yellow neighbor Yvonne. When you were on a bike ride the other day, Yvonne yelled, "Hi neighbor," with a big smile and wave while you were still 2 houses away from hers. Before you got to her driveway, she was already at the edge of the road waiting for you to stop so she can give you a hug. She asked if you've heard about the neighborhood pool party and tells you her son from out of town and her 3 friends that are always at her house are going to be there. Before you have a chance to ask when it is, she's excitedly telling you a story about her best friend who just moved to town that you just have to meet. The Yvonnes you'll come across in the business community are positive, love to talk, and enjoy making friends and being friendly. They are great at relationships and have never met a stranger, but sometimes they can be uninterested when things aren't fun, can worry too much about the approval of others, and can become overly optimistic without checking the details. Selling to them will require building a personal relationship and making time for non-work related topics and even a laugh or two. Now that we understand our yellow neighbor Yvonne, next up is our green neighbor Gary. You usually see Gary walking his dog in the morning with his earbuds in, and when you meet, he steps aside, gives a quick, kind smile or hi, and gives you room to pass. He sort of keeps to himself, but when you do talk, he is always extremely nice and glad to hear your family is doing well. Gary did really impress you one day when you dropped a grocery bag in the driveway as he stopped to help you pick it up, clean up the mess, and carry the rest of your groceries to the front door. Gary also introduced you to a few members of extended family, and you see their car in his driveway often. The Garys you'll come across in the business community are loyal, enjoy being part of the team, and can be trusted to be there for you when you need anything. They are happy to lend a hand and enjoy being around smaller groups of people that they can trust. But sometimes they can be fearful of change, overly sensitive about their work, and less likely to share when they have a good idea or a problem. Selling to them will require asking questions to get their feelings, not going too fast, and ensuring you built trust before asking for too much. After getting to know Gary, your green neighbor, let's meet Brian, your blue neighbor. Even though you've lived in your neighborhood for almost a year now, you haven't met Brian yet. Yvonne said she stopped by to welcome Brian to the neighborhood and thinks he works in IT or engineering, but she wasn't sure which. You saw Brian installing a fence one day, and it is so perfectly straight and well done, you considered asking him to help you with yours. You did notice Brian leaves precisely at the same time every day during the week, and his car is often in the driveway on the weekend. The Bryans you'll come across in the business community are detail-oriented, tremendous planners, and will regularly deliver their best work. They are most comfortable ensuring the quality of products and systematically completing tasks. But they can be overly serious with few expressions, critical of others' work, and uncomfortable with anything they find to be outside of the norm. Selling to them will require a great deal of data and being prepared to answer a lot of questions, and knowing they aren't going to make a decision without analyzing its overall impact. Most of us have Ritas, Ivans, Garys, and Brians in our personal and professional lives. Since it's important to understand who we are selling to as salespeople, it's great practice to start identifying those around us in our personal lives. Developing that skill outside of the office, where people are more themselves, a little less formal, and easier to identify, will help us make quicker assessments during sales meetings and better quality relationships internally with our coworkers. It's also extremely important to understand who you are first, so you'll know how best to successfully adapt to others to build better relationships. It's also important to understand no one communication style is better than the others, but they do include some strengths and weaknesses that come more naturally. Let's take a closer look at listening to see how this applies to yourself and your clients, while further exploring the characteristics and commonalities that come with the individual styles. The Ritas and Ivans, or the Reds and Yellows, are the strong communicators of the world, aren't afraid to share their thoughts and opinions, and will usually fill the silence in every room they are in. They normally fall in the extroverted category, and because they're so busy talking, they can make the mistake of dominating the conversation, and without extra effort can be seen as poor listeners. In a sales situation, they have no problem talking to other people, but they make the mistake of missing verbal and nonverbal cues, interrupting and not taking the time to understand the needs, thoughts, and opinions of others. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Garys and Brians, or the Greens and Blues, are oftentimes more introverted, making them naturally better listeners. They focus on ensuring people around them have the chance to share, and when they speak, it is usually after careful thought or after asking questions to ensure they give a proper response. Sometimes they have important input that they'll keep to themselves, and in a selling situation, may hesitate to move the conversation forward or introduce themselves to someone new. There is tons of information to be derived from communication skills, and we challenge you to include your new understanding of them as part of your sales approach. And whether you're in a sales meeting or taking a stroll around your neighborhood, you'll benefit from understanding, adapting, and adopting them in an effort to more effectively communicate with others. We're sure you enjoyed learning more about color energies and further exploring Scott Schwefel's TEDx in part 1 of combining communication skills. Now it's time to start identifying, adapting, and adopting to have more sales success.